Japan is one of the world's most popular travel destinations. Osaka and Tokyo, two of the biggest cities in Japan, gathered over 18 million travelers in 2016 alone in an article done by Insider. Since Japan is one of the world's most popular travel destinations, I wanted to inform people about what it would be like if they were to visit Japan, whether they ended up visiting for work or they just wanted to travel there. I've been interested in visiting Japan for a long time, ever since I found out that was where anime came from about 10 years ago. And over those 10 years, I've done research on my own out of just pure curiosity, and some of the YouTubers I watched live in Japan themselves, and so that got me even more interested. And I supplemented that with the research that I did for this project. I wanted to talk about what kinds of housing you can find in Japan, whether you end up going to stay in a hotel or apartment, and how you learn Japanese while in Japan. While staying in Japan, you might have different needs. If you're staying only a few days to a few weeks, you might want to stay in a hotel. Over a few weeks or months, you'd rather stay in an apartment. Love hotels are not just in Japan, they're not exclusive, and they're kind of all over the world. But most people have a stigma about them, that the dirty, grimy places where you hire a prostitute to go and have fun times with, or you go do drugs there. But they're not all like that. Most are some nicer than regular hotels, and they cost a lot less too. And they're rented by the half hour, or even just for the whole night for much less than a normal hotel would. The reason they're so extensive in Japan and why you can find them just about everywhere, especially in big cities, is because they're mostly used by couples to get away from crowded family homes, because most families in Asia live together from grandparents to young children, and trying to do your business with your significant other in a crowded home doesn't sound like a fun idea. Most apartments in Japan also have very thin walls, so unless you want your neighbor to overhear you, a love hotel is a much better choice. As noted by Chaplin, the author of The History of Love Hotels, most rooms cost less than $100 a night, and they offer food from the establishment themselves, like room service, or they offer delivery from local restaurants. But I would caution against traveling and using love hotels if you're male and are traveling with a male friend or relative and you wanted to stay in the same love hotel, as some hotels in Japan won't let you stay there if they won't let two men room together. Because unfortunately, there is a stigma against gay couples in Japan, and they won't let them stay together. I have a short clip. I don't know how to play it from here. Sorry, I can't read it louder.
Unbelievable. I love really going around.
So that was a short clip I took from two of the YouTubers I like to watch, where they traveled around a bunch of love hotels, and some of them didn't let them in, unfortunately. Yep. The next kind of hotel Japan has a lot of are capsule hotels. Japan is a very small country, and they don't often have a lot of space for the big, expensive rooms that we see in most other countries. So if you're looking for a cheap option, these smaller rooms can be a good option. Mariana, a researcher on capsule hotels and their business, described them as small single-person rooms limited to about the size of a single bed, typically box or cylindrical shaped. They often come with air conditioning, outlets. Some even come with their own small TVs, but they're usually limited to the size of a single bed. And I wouldn't recommend them if you're excessively large or big, or claustrophobic, because a small room the size of a single person bed doesn't sound like a fun time. If you're staying in Japan for a longer exterior time, like maybe a couple months, you might want to look into renting an apartment. If you're planning on staying over 3 months, you'll need to get a resident registration card, which is evidence of how long you're going to stay in Japan, and it serves as an ID, and you'll need to keep it with you on all times, just like your passport. And you'll need it if you want to get an apartment at all. But having an apartment in Japan can come with some troubles, as some apartments in Japan don't allow foreigners to live in those apartments at all. Landlords can mark it off in a little box that they don't want foreigners to live there, and you're not allowed to rent an apartment in that building. So hiring a real estate agent in Japan is a big help, as they'll help you find apartments that'll let you live there. It would be helpful to tell the agent exactly what you wanted as they help you look for an apartment to live in. How many rooms do you want? Because most apartments only stick with you on a room. Maybe you want more space. The location, how far you want it to be from a train station, or because that's the main mode of travel in Japan. Do you want your own bathroom? Because some apartments are so small they don't have their own bathrooms, and bathrooms are shared by the whole building. Or if you want a car parking spot to park your own car. You'll also need to hire what's called a joint security guarantor, which is a person or a company who is financially responsible for you if you decide to leave the country and didn't pay all the fees that are required for living in your apartment. There are lots of written fees that come along with having an apartment. Some of the fees could be a security deposit, which is normal, and it's about 3 months of your rent. Maintenance fees, which are for the communal areas like lighting and cleaning up of stairways and hallways. You'll also need to pay your real estate agent, and you'll also have to give them a finder's fee, which is a tip for finding your apartment. You'll need non-life insurance, which is insurance for your appliance and furniture if the building already came with it. And if you want to renew your lease, because leases in Japan typically only last 1 to 2 months, you have to pay, most of the time you have to pay a renewal charge, but it's not always, and it's only sometimes. You also have to have what's called key money before you actually start renting an apartment, which is a tip to the landlord for allowing you to live there. And then the rent itself, which can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month, depending on the location and the size of your apartment. Miki Seko, the writer of the article Housing Markets in the US and Japan, said the price for square foot in Japan was extraordinarily high compared to other places she had researched. The total price of your rent, of the fees and the rent in your apartment could come anywhere to 5 or 6 months in total. The utilities must be done by yourself, and the landlord won't do your utilities for you. And you'll have to do this by contacting the local government with your information. But leaving is a lot easier. It mostly just requires canceling your lease and contacting the local government about your address change and getting your utilities canceled. If traveling Japan, it would be helpful to learn Japanese, because trying to get around somewhere where you don't know how to speak or read the language doesn't sound like a good idea. There are different ways you could learn Japanese. You could go to a language school in Japan. They cost about typically $12,000 to $17,000 per semester, and they're made for teaching at any skill level. And Tokyo has several different ones to offer, but just alone. Asao Language School and Shinwa Learning Academy are examples where you can take online or in-person classes. You could also attempt to learn independently by being self-taught. They make books online on Amazon, or you could watch a bunch of movies. Some people learn that way. Or if you knew a friend who knew the language, that would also be a good way too. The local government and civic centers will also offer classes taught by community members for cheaper if you either go that route. Moving to Japan can come with a lot of trouble as well. How to get around for transportation. Will you take a car or a bus? Will you take Ubers everywhere, or will you learn how to read the Tokyo subway? How to acclimate to the culture, because that's a big part of going to any country, is learning how to handle the culture there, as every country is different. And then also, if you plan to stay in Japan for a really long time, it's also the alienness that will be there, because Japan is 99% homogenous in Japanese, and no matter how long you stay there, whether for 10 plus years, you will still always be a foreigner in Japan. But that's a lot to communicate in the small amount of time I have today, and I recommend doing your own research if you're more interested in it. I told you today about how you could find some different kinds of housing in Japan, some different hotels, some apartments, and how you can learn Japanese while in Japan. Although I discussed lots of issues, I don't want to discourage anyone from traveling to Japan, as it is one of the world's most popular travel destinations. And I hope with every fiber of my being that I get to go to Japan one day and experience it for myself. I hope that those of you who do also get the chance to. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope you'll have a nice day.